right now we don't think about how, what is the end of the life of the product. So nothing is really circular. So that's like a really, for me, Web2 perspective, something created to be disposable. And a Web3 perspective is how can you like extend the life, resell it, revalue it. And that's where digital comes in handy, like this idea of NFTs, being able to like have that change hands without even having like a physical impact.
Hello everyone and welcome yet to another episode of NewForum. NewForum brings together leaders, creators, new starters and new perspectives on crypto, the metaverse, NFTs, social 3 and DAOs. The NewCoin protocol provides the foundation for the next generation of social networks, shifting from the attention economy to the decentralized creative economy.
And with the explosion of DeFi, NFT, scalable, and interoperable protocols, it is now time to take social networking into the Web 3.0 stack. And as usual, we have yet another very special guest on today's episode, Lauren Kacher. She's a designer working in luxury fashion in Paris with a focus on sustainability in leather goods, exploring opportunities to support brands and organizations in their sustainability journey. I get super excited when I hear the word sustainability, so I can't wait to hear more about her innovation. She's also the creative director and founder of ALTERRAGE, the first Web3 Phygital fashion label that creates Phygital fashion with a goal to use digital fashion to inspire real-world transformation. We will hear more about her and ALTERRAGE shortly, as well as the impact she is making in the digital and Web3 space. Lauren, thank you again for joining us in today's episode.
Hello, thank you for the introduction and super excited as well.
Awesome. So my first question is, of course, we would love to know more about you, your work as an accessory designer who is passionate about sustainability and as well as what inspired the birth of ALTERRAGE.
Yeah, of course. So, I mean, as you can hear from my accent, I'm American. So I'm from California originally, but I think when I was about 15, I had the opportunity to visit Europe and more on this side of the world. And I really fell in love with it. So that's always kind of been in the back of my mind. How do I have these different kind of cultural experiences? So I had a pretty traditional kind of education, like as far as going to school to be a designer. So I did that in Minnesota. It was a really technical start. So I was doing a lot with pattern making and construction. And so that was more on like the garment side. And so I remember during this time, I really wanted, you know, to like find the dream of fashion, the more luxury side, but I kind of felt stuck in this like technical part. But now, like when I look back, I see it was really important to have that. So I guess it's important to see like the path may not always be like directly where you think you're going, but it will get you there eventually. And so I had different kind of experiences. I was in London for a couple months, a year in total in 2 different times, working also in luxury in design houses. And then I also spent some time in New York. And that's where also I got more experience within sustainable design. I was at the Reformation for a period of time. And then about 4 years ago, I had the opportunity to come to Paris. And so that was through a master's program at Institut Français de la Mode, if you've heard of it. And so that was when I made like the official switch to accessories. And also during this master's was when I really saw like the sustainability massive issue that we have in fashion, and starting to think, how can we reset this at the design phase? Because I see a lot of maybe like things looking for solutions at the end of the design process, at the end of making the product. And that's much more difficult than if you just start that at the beginning. So that's when my journey began to find solutions. And so since in Paris, I was working at Saint Laurent, Loewe, and Zadig & Voltaire. And so at each of these places, I kind of launched and led sustainable projects For example, at the Web 8, there was a project called the Surplus Bag Project. And so that I was working with the team in Spain to figure out how do we upcycle leftover leather and reintegrate that into a luxury product. So yeah, and at each spot, different set of experiences. But with COVID and everything, all the hiring was stopped. And so I had to learn how to be a freelancer and also how to stay in France, because like having kind of visa things can be difficult for if you're living in a foreign country. So figured that out. So I was working as a bag designer for about a year. And then around about a year ago is when I came across digital fashion. And I saw this and I just see it as a massive solution, at least partial solution to sustainability in the industry, as well as like finally like some freshness and some excitement like being injected into an industry that is really traditional and really stuck, honestly. So yeah, and so then that's also what led me to start to found ALTERRAGE, but we can go into that a bit later.
What an amazing, incredible journey, like hearing you, it sounds so inspiring, and you've been in all these different places, and I can relate to that it inspired you, different perspective, different people, different cities, so impressive. And also how you made that change from not only sustainability, but then to technology. I think you're ahead of the game, I think. Also, I'm wondering, by the way, are these real or are these,
yeah.
I
didn't know they're
not
not. So we did a collaboration with ALTERRAGE and Jevels. And so we did this in October, and they're like the first like NFT marketplace just for like digital only jewelry. So we like designed them and then collaborated on making the filter. And so you open Snap Camera. I recently made a tutorial on how to do this, and it's really easy. You just paste the link of like the Snapchat code into Snap Camera, and you can wear them like for any calls, and they even move and have a bit of like gravity. So they were really
Honestly,
fun.
Awesome.
I thought they were real, and then I looked at it and I'm like, wait a minute, they're digital. And
I could like make them there, maybe.
Oh my god, I need to get me like a pair of those, because I'm also really interested in the VR space and how we can translate designs actually into filters. But I'm wondering, with your work in fashion, you have a lot of content, obviously, probably with social media and social media platforms, as it becomes a part kind of the work we do in fashion. And I'm wondering, what are your takes on the current state of social platforms and maybe the creative economy in general? And do you think there can be improvements made?
Yeah. So for me, like within companies, it wasn't really my focus to ever be so connected with social media, since I was more like in design teams. But I especially notice this now as we're launching ALTERRAGE, which is like the first Web3 fashion label. And so the goal is really, how do we connect our current fashion industry to the tech side, to the crypto, Web3, like, these like NFT crypto bro collectors, like they speak such different languages. And so what we're realizing, it requires kind of a hybrid approach. And so right now it does feel a bit segmented, so you have like Twitter, Discord that are like more heavily used by like the Web3 side. And then you have like Instagram, TikTok, which are definitely more like the fashion side. And right now there's really not a big like crossover. So personally for us, like we're just starting to figure out how do we show on all of these platforms. It's probably better to stay focused. So for the moment, we're focused on Twitter, and then like soon, like starting our Instagram up. But yeah, like it's definitely very different markets. And so I think, like what you guys are doing is interesting, because maybe that can start to all be brought together. And so this is like a new market. Like right now, this seems to be separate. And so it's figuring out who are these people that are still interested in like the tech. They're not afraid of tech, but they're still wanting to create like a digital image that's like recognizable, kind of like a personal branding, but with digital fashion.
Yeah, trust me, like we can relate to that a lot, because we are trying to bridge exactly that gap, of people who might not know crypto but come from fashion, and then you have crypto who are not really into the cultural aspect. And we are exactly figuring that out as well. Like, how do we, tell our young audience, okay, this is how, this works, but then also how do we get everybody kind of involved in the game? So it's, like you said, it's a difficult place to navigate at the moment. And I'm wondering, or maybe our audience would also love to know, you know, you're wearing these amazing digital earrings, and what got you interested within like the Web3 space, especially like NFTs and, you know, DAOs and all these things are coming up now. Like, what is so exciting about that for you?
Yeah, I think this also comes from like also being a designer. It's a total new landscape, and it's quite interesting because the rules are almost opposite to how kind of like the industry works right now. So I came across, I don't know if you know Digital X, maybe about also close to a year ago. And so that was my first time hearing about Web3, hearing about more like the decentralized finance side and how that's being connected to fashion. And so I've been following with them, and then we have now a partnership, which is what makes us like the first Web3 label, because we're using their protocol stack to kind of deploy these Web3 tools, and then with a goal to be a DAO. So that is the ultimate goal. And so how I feel that's different currently than how the industry works, especially for fashion, I see kind of like two sides. So the first side is how like product is created. And so right now we don't think about how, what is the end of the life of the product? So nothing is really circular. So that's like a really, for me, Web2 perspective, something created to be disposable. And a Web3 perspective is how can you like extend the life, resell it, revalue it. And that's where digital comes in handy, like this idea of NFTs, being able to like have that change hands without even having like a physical impact. So maybe that's kind of the first section. And then the second is like, how do we work with each other, like within companies? Is it hierarchical? Is it a group voting? And so for me, I've had a lot of problems in these companies being like, it's so hard, you know, to get in. It's so competitive. There's always someone behind you kind of waiting to take your spot. So you lose essentially a lot of power because you have to kind of just say yes if you want to keep your position. So I've had to say yes a lot. And so I'm really excited about that there's a new way to do things. And so that's what, for me, a DAO is. It's about kind of assembling people around a set of values. And then you still need like some organization, which is how we're trying to figure it out now for ALTERRAGE. So we still have a core team, but then we've just launched a governance token through Digital X. And so with that, we can create proposals and have a more interactive communication with our community. And so we can say, where should we have this fashion show? Which design do you think we should launch? And so then people who have like contributed to our community, who have earned this token, therefore have like kind of the highest voting power. And so the tables have turned. So your title no longer really dictates like your power. It's more like what you contribute is your impact. So that's like what I really love and think it's totally nuts. And that's what we're trying to figure out. Like, what is the future of that?
Totally.
Right.
I mean, it really, like, as you're speaking, I'm thinking about value. Like the word value keeps popping up in my mind because it brings a lot of value. And then the idea of ownership, and there's this freedom as well. And then, you know, inclusivity and diversity and all of this comes into play in this Web3 space. And as you're speaking, you know, you're touching on, you've sort of figured out a way to combine the idea of, or the concept of NFT, DAOs, everything. Like you're pretty much, how do you say it? Like you don't just say it, you're practicing them. You know, you're incorporating them in your work and in everything you do. And so I think if people were wondering, what did Lauren mean by ALTERRAGE is the first Web3 Phygital fashion label? I think this explains it, at least for me, because you're indeed like applying all these amazing concepts, and I'm really excited to see, you know, where you go with ALTERRAGE.
Yeah, I think it's really an ecosystem that we're trying to create now. And that's the difference, you know, between like product life cycle and like something being thrown away, something like in nature. I don't know if you guys have heard of like biomimicry. It's just an interesting design approach of you try to kind of emulate something in nature and then use that to solve a problem in like a product design. So yeah, I see it as like an ecosystem, and ecosystems are super complex, and they all are ideally like circular, and like something is giving and something is receiving, and then that continues and is what I guess the definition of sustainability is, something that sustains. So yeah, it's really complicated, but
yeah,
it's really cool.
It's complicated,
it is something
but I
not
think
done before.
Right, but I think, you know, Lauren, you explained it really well, you know, kind of how you're applying it, how you apply it to what you do. I think really broke it down to most of our audience who are like sort of now getting into this space. I think you broke it down and it's more digestible, I'd say. Well, we've been talking about Phygital, and it's, you know, this is a word that I think is mostly being thrown around these days a lot. Some people don't want to say it, that they feel like, oh, I don't want to use the word Phygital, but it seems like it's something that is here to stay. And I'm wondering your definition, like how would you define it, your version as an accessory designer? How would you define the word Phygital, and in terms of like in regards to ALTERRAGE and everything you're doing?
Yeah, it's a word that is kind of like sustainability. It's really vague and everyone has different definitions.
Exactly.
So I think that's also why I'm also hesitating, like, should I keep saying Phygital? And so that's why, like, for example, for sustainability, instead of that, I now say circularity, because it's more specific and it's more about like, like what is like a circle, like it's very visual. And so now we've done the same thing for Phygital. And so I've also looked up like what's the original definition of Phygital. It was invented by this agency called Momentum in 2013 in Australia. And so they basically said something Phygital is like allowing you to experience it like both digitally and physically. So it's just super vague. And there's so many options of interpretation, which is also why it's really interesting. It's like really bridging these two worlds. But yeah, everyone I talk to has a different definition. But what I believe is really interesting for me is something I've coined called metarality. And so it's a formula that we are kind of creating our product around at ALTERRAGE. So the formula is like metarality equals IRL plus ORL equals LTL. So what I'll like break it down. So IRL is like in real life. So this is like physical. This is like something more maybe demure, like something more comfortable. We have environmental constraints that bind us. And so we need to start like aligning with that and not just create a bunch of products. So it's also thinking like there's these three worlds. Like we have a physical world, that's the IRL. We have this ORL, which Danny Loftus came up with the idea of on real life. So I also use it. And so that's more kind of like augmented reality. So for me, that's like what the earrings are. Like I'm still using digital, but I'm placing it over my physical body. So that's for me the second kind of dimension. And then the third dimension is like digital only, metaverse, what everyone's kind of like getting super excited about, creating an avatar that's digital and then putting digital clothing or whatever onto that avatar. So we're kind of like aligning our product with each world, because for me, it's totally different perspectives, but like I don't want the same product physically as I do digitally. So then what we do is make like really circular, sustainable, like very selective physical pieces. And then we amplify them with filters. So we were recently in Miami for this event called DecentralCon, a conference. And so we had kind of our first like proof of concept there. And so we had like some physical pieces that were like really like kind of a uniform, like a leather jacket, a jumpsuit. And then with that, we collaborated with different filter artists to create kind of a texture that overlays the physical garment. So for us, that's more interesting because we still have physical bodies and I still want to go to a bar and like wear something that's nice. But you can use filters to like amplify, because the digital space has no physical like constraint. Like you can be on fire, you can be lit up, like it's like unlimited. So right, like use physical responsibly and then use digital for the imagination, the need of newness, kind of like throwing away this idea of fast fashion and maybe adapting the need for new in the digital space.
That sounds super amazing. I really like that. Personally, I also, you know, I definitely see that, you know, digital fashion is here to solve a lot of the sustainability issues. However, I can't help but also think like I love the physical, aspect of things. And I remember watching an interview, and the host was saying something about, yeah, you can buy like a fashion piece, a digital fashion piece, like as an NFT, and you can own it, and it's unique. And then one, like a guest, an audience asked the question, but like, why would I want to do that if I can physically touch it? Like, what's the point? Like, I don't really get all this, can you like break it down to me, for me? And so, yeah, that was quite interesting. And I think most people will be thinking that way, like, I want to physically touch that. So I like how you said, have the digital is solving this problem, but then you also you can have these physical properties, but then, get them wisely, buy them wisely, and think about elongating their life cycle, and not just like buying and buying. So you can have a balance instead of like buying a bunch of accessories, like what you're doing. You have this on, and I think it's really awesome. So I was gonna ask this question, but you came wearing a digital accessory, so I'm not sure if it still applies. And the question is, do you see the possibility of digital accessories being part of our everyday life? And I'm
I know. And it's crazy because it's so easy. And that's why for me, I'm like the most interested in filters right now, because like you can do it now, and like they're still fun, and like we're physical. We still, though, now like are really used to working like digitally, like with our current world situation. And so like the metaverse is cool, we're all excited, but like there's no interoperability yet. It's very difficult to adapt digital designs to different metaverses. Crypto voxels is completely different than Decentraland. It doesn't look nice yet for us as a designer. Like my rendering in 3D does not translate to these metaverses like nicely yet. And so like until that happens, which it will probably, but we have like filters. And so we just use Snapchat to start with, but we're also kind of creating our own tech around that to be able to really have ownership. Because like with these earrings, like I still like, they feel like they're my earrings, like they feel like they're in my little digital closet. Like I just go to my Snap camera, I have them, I import them for the meeting. As my collection gets larger, I can choose which ones. Yeah, so it's like ready now. And so that's why I think for me, that's an interesting place to start. But yeah.
I think you said something that I experienced myself. I also ventured a bit into the digital fashion design, and I'm like, how can I get my clothes onto filters? And then I tried DressX, and I was like, this is nice, but I want my clothes on here, and I want to have them wear them and also make them fit nicely, because sometimes you put something on and then it's like, oh, it doesn't fit. But even with you, I didn't realize that they were digital, and that's, I think, amazing, and the possibilities are so huge. And I'm wondering, with a lot of brands now venturing into the digital space, we see a lot of brands now adapting to these certain climates, and they want to get into the metaverse and everything. So do you see them having issues with that, or do you see it's more like the underground kind of brands that are gonna now come to the surface? Or what do you think about the bigger brands? And
yeah, I think it also comes to kind of this idea about being open and collaborating, because I think what is necessary even for sustainability and now the metaverse, like a company cannot have all their tech themselves, all the fashion themselves. Like there's just so many different aspects now to like the metaverse. And so I think collaboration is like the kind of like main massive point that we have to all become very like familiar with. And then also maybe this idea of control, because that's also really different with Web3, is that it's about your community, and everyone is still really confused, like why this PFP cartoon is selling for like so much like crypto. And it's not because of the image, it's because of the community that's around it. It's because of like this status symbol. And so I think that's something that brands will not understand for quite some time. It's just like a new way to create. It's like even in like digital X, there's something like called a derivative. So in like fashion, if like someone like copies my design, it's horrible. And I have had this experience and it is horrible. I've been in an interview and then I see my bag like on the runway like 6 months later, and it's a really awful feeling. But then in like Web3, it's like a derivative. So everything is initially kind of transparently marked and like stored minted on the blockchain as an NFT when it's ready. So then there is always this like record. So that's one kind of nice thing. But then you have derivatives, and that's actually seen as positive, like to take something and transform it and like make it kind of go hands from creator to creator. And so that's about control. And so we'll see like how that goes, but brands are definitely interested in the metaverse as a way to make like more profit and just kind of take what they're doing digitally and replicate it. But I'm like, why would we make the same mistakes that we're already making physically and just like double that in a digital space? So for us, like, so now when you mint an NFT, you have to do predetermine the quantity, the price, like kind of the rarity and what's included. But like what I think is a better idea, what we want to figure out how to do is to do like a pre-order model, even for digital assets. So like, I don't even want to mint something until I know someone wants it. So that's also what needs to happen for physical goods. So yeah, I guess it's about brands will be quick to do collaborations, to do tests. It's a good way to start and get involved and kind of start understanding the ecosystem, but it goes much deeper. It goes about the community, about being open, and kind of like everyone's on the same level, like playing field now. Like it's not like a brand is now hiring a designer and hiding them in the closet. It's now like we're all on the same level, so you can collaborate or you're going to get left out. So yeah, that's my perspective.
Yeah, it's been very interesting to see. And also, like you said, we don't want to repeat the same mistakes, especially sustainability. You know, minting a ton of NFTs is probably not the best way, you know, and we will see where the future. I'm very excited for seeing which brand can really translate that very well and which brand maybe, you know, needs a bit of help. Or it's also exciting to see young designers from anywhere in the world really being able to participate in these forums, in these, you know, conversations. I think that is pretty new.
Yeah, because like, oh my God, I think I've done 10 internships like in my life in all these places. It's just like so hard to get in. And like, yeah, there's so many people who want to participate in fashion and Clo 3D, like DAS, like all these programs really help. Even though, I mean, you still need a pretty like good computer and you still need to pay monthly subscriptions. So that's not free, but it's still a bit more open. Like now you don't have to pay thousands to like move to Paris. Like you can sit in your house from wherever you are, hopefully with a hopefully good internet connection, and like get started. And so, yeah, the thing that's hard about that is that there's not a lot of formal courses yet, but it will start as people are, doing more and more of like the digital fashion stuff. So.
Yeah, that's totally true. Like, you know, I graduated from fashion school, worked in New York for a while. And, you know, I ended up in a space where I didn't have like the actual studio space to create, you know, and also you have to think about budgets in terms of like buying stuff and whatnot. And so for a while I kind of like, you know, I stopped designing because I'm like, okay, I don't want to have to deal with everything else I have to get and all that. And now there's this idea of digital fashion and it's becoming more popular and people are starting to like, you know, like accept it, you know, in this space. And I think that, or in our society in general. And I think that that's really great for me. Like I'm so inspired. Like I was looking at your LinkedIn and I saw that you actually took a course and I was like, whoa, I think I'm gonna do that, you know, because I can just like sit at home and then, you know, put all my ideas in like, you know, in like digital wise, you know, versus just like feeling like, oh, I'm not designing and, you know, and another thing that was really cool was we had a guest from Nigeria, and you know how like her journey and to get into the digital space is so inspiring because she had no access to anything and she didn't have the ability to travel to, you know, to Paris or wherever, but you know, just having access to the software and the programs, she's self-taught and she's doing really well. And when you look at her work, you can see that it's really diverse, you know, in comparison to other things. So I feel like it's bringing in a lot of like diversity in terms of like the aesthetic and everything. So that's super cool. And so the fast growing consumer desire for like sustainability clothing it's increasing, right? The demand is like, we see that it's something that everybody is like getting into. And so the demand for blockchain Apro solution that allow like these brands to communicate traceability and ethical sourcing is like a big thing now. So I'm wondering, like, what's your criteria in choosing blockchain?
Yeah, before I kind of got into like the Web3 space, I found like a couple solutions that are probably more for brands like not ready to go that way, like have more kind of a service that helps them with it. I know Retrace was one I came across that had like a pretty cool solution, and also like a built-in system about maybe like for physical product, like how do you like have a transparent supply chain? How do you show where the material is made, who made it, make sure that factory even has like the proper certification. So there's different tools like that that are like good for the physical side. But now, right, since like we have our own contracts, we have our own smart contracts in partnership with Digital X, and we're on Polygon, which is also a blockchain with a lot lower gas fees. But I mean, the market is like constantly changing. Like right now, it's completely different than it was like a few months ago. So that's the other thing is that I don't know, it seems blockchains aren't inherently scalable. So that's something that like we have to kind of figure out. That's why Ethereum is making a new Ethereum 2, kind of changing to this like way of working that is like more sustainable and takes a fraction of that energy cost. Another thing that's really important for Web3 is about kind of like stakeholders. And so is that blockchain owned by a very small group of people like VCs, or is that blockchain like more owned by the community? So I think that's another really important thing to think about if you want to be Web3, because it's really not like the traditional way of VCs. So we even have like something called patrons. And so it's like an alternative way to kind of support us because we deliver like this, like these benefits, there's a lot of content. And then those who kind of opt in for the patron system then receive like kind of special benefits, but we kind of still co-benefit as we create, and then they also are able to get special access to products and events and things like that. But yeah, so I guess there's those two things. Like it's good to have like something that's pretty like formulaic and understandable for a blockchain, but it's also important to see how that kind of ownership is broken down internally within the blockchain. So I know that's why Emma chose Polygon, because it's really more Web3 feeling versus like some other ones. And also that it's very easily like going to be, it's like a second layer to Ethereum. So that way when Ethereum 2 is ready, it can be easily kind of interacted between those, bridged.
Right, thanks for sharing that. And you know, a lot of things you're touching on is what we at like NewCoin Foundation, like we discuss a lot. You know, we talk a lot about how to make things, you know, like user friendly, because most of these creators do not want to like deal with all the, you know, all the hurdles, I would say, you know, in like, you know, sort of associating with a blockchain. And so we try our best to navigate all these things to make it user friendly, and also sustainability and inclusivity and all that, accessibility. And so yeah, that's something we're really interested in, and we're totally working on as a team. And
yeah, and like you said, you know, it's moving so fast. Like you almost feel like every day there's something new coming, or a new product or whatever. And I think really finding the most sustainable ways also, like, you know, you have proof of work and proof of stake, but we figured out like maybe this is not the long-term solution for like having that model, you know, and it's gonna take a while, I think, but I'm happy that there's different projects who represent or have different, you know, communities, so that everyone can find their own, where they fit best, or, you know, what works best for them, and that it is decentralized, and that there's not just like one thing, you know. And I hope that will continue. Yeah,
it's definitely hard to navigate too, like if you don't know about like, right, what is decentralization, what is Web3 and all these things, it's super hard. Like, that's why also, we want to make sure it's understandable for the fashion side, those who are coming into the community, instead of like being kind of overwhelmed and scared at the start. Like, how can we make it an easier onboarding process, I suppose.
Yeah, and I think that's why, you know, having something like NewForum is really, you know, is really great, because we're hearing your experience. We heard about how you go into it, the challenges, and you know, how you're problem solving. And I think somebody watching this will be super inspired, and they're going to learn a lot about how to navigate it on their own as well. So my next question is about this word that is, I feel like it's become almost like a hype now, metaverse space. And you know, how it's going to be exciting and, you know, bring all these like innovative possibilities and into the fashion industry, the gaming industry, and our society in general. And I'm just wondering if you have any thoughts on that. Like, it's always great to hear the pros and cons of like this exciting space. I'm not sure if it's been realized, or are we already there, or we have to wait a bit longer, because everybody has their own opinion as to where we're at with the metaverse. So it would be nice to hear your thoughts on that.
Yeah, I don't even think people can decide if there's one metaverse or many. That's like the first problem. Yeah, I don't know either. I guess it makes sense that we have one metaverse and several multiverse. I can't remember like what's the latest on this. But I still think about like, what is it, Ready Player One? I still think about this movie.
Yeah.
And like, I really hope it's not like the physical world is a mess and then we have to escape to this digital world, which I guess is kind of what we have now. Like, we're stuck. Like, sometimes like some people are so confined in things. But yeah, I mean, like, the metaverse is super exciting. I like, for a creator to create a world is crazy. Like, as a designer, you're kind of like, oh, okay, well, this is inspiration. And then it just like is resulting in like a jacket or a bag. Like, we don't get to control the environments it's shot in. We don't get to control the models it's put on. But like in the metaverse, in like digital fashion design, you control where it is. It could be on the moon. It could be on Mars. It could be on an alien. It could be on like nothing. It's floating. And so that's like, from a creator perspective, like a super exciting thing. And for me, like, I'm trying to learn like the programs so I too can like kind of like access this and learn DAZ and learn about Blender to create environments. And then for now I'm on Clo, so it's like step by step. But yeah, and so I think, right, with the metaverse, I heard something really interesting the other day in the Twitter Spaces. I can't remember his username right now, but he was also like really into testing in the metaverse to solve physical world problems. And that is like really interesting. Like, it's kind of like a simulation. Like, you know, like when a pilot is training or like an astronaut is training to go to space, they would kind of make a simulation. And so it's kind of like using the metaverse as a simulation to fix the physical world. And like, that's awesome. Like, that's sick. So not only as like a place that's inspiring, that is maybe an escape, like a form of entertainment, a form of like new virtual social media, but like fix the real world, because like it's a mess. Like, it needs to be fixed. And like, I don't want to just make stuff anymore. Like, I wanted to like give back. And so that's even like another element to ALTERRAGE. There's so many freaking elements, but like we call it like alter anarchy. And so it's about combining, like in that first sentence you said, like URL, like digital to like fix the IRL. And so every collection we do, we form it around like a real world cause. And so our cause right now is e-waste. It's like this massive problem that we kind of all forget about. It's kind of ironic that we're doing digital fashion with e-waste. But like, it's about partnering, promoting, and then funding that problem. So we are partnering with like a nonprofit. We then allocate like a percentage of our future sales. We're still developing our collection to like fix the problem. And then also we communicate about the problem, share the facts. This is what it is. And this is like how you can, like, here's a call to action on kind of like what you can do. So yeah, like fashion is like gonna change so much. It's like getting more opened up to more people. So therefore becoming more diverse and interesting. I'm so tired of like hearing the same things about the same brands. So I'm so excited about this. And yeah, and then, right, like having charity, having nonprofit, having environmentalism connect to fashion in a more like, I think, beneficial way versus just like saying, oh, we're inspired, or this is like one thing we're doing. It's like, how can you integrate that like always into your collections, into your sales? And nonprofits still really need a lot of money. So anything to like help them is good, I think. So yeah.
This was a really interesting take, because that was something that I didn't heard before about that possibility, you know. Also for me, it was a shock seeing, you know, gaming and fashion come together, and now you have this like world of like, you know, the nerdy kids and then the fashion designers, and they all just joined in the space, and it's really funny to witness. So Lauren, we're wondering, what are you looking forward to in the future? You know, like what is getting you excited, and also maybe if you're a young creator, like how can you get involved within the digital fashion space?
Yeah, I mean, I'm super excited like to keep building ALTERRAGE. We're currently working on like our first edition, so we don't call it drops or drip or whatever like they're calling it now. We call it edition because we want it to be like curated, intentional, not like just something to sell fast. And so we're doing that now, collaborating with some different artists, so that's really cool. And then we'll be presenting that in London in end of February. So things are starting to move as far as like the product side. And then, excited to keep like building the community. And for us, it's really new. Like we haven't made like a DAO, like Web3 community before. So it's like, how do you do that? Like, how do you do it in a democratic way? How do you do it so there's not too many voices, but then like it's organized and then people still feel they have an opinion. So like for ALTERRAGE, like super excited like to see where this goes. And then as well as like find people to collaborate who like share the same values is really important. And like I'm excited. I hope the fashion industry like starts to embrace these new things. I think, it's important to not like villainize. It's not just to like not pretend you know everything. It's to be super open. That's kind of always been my problem. I'm like super honest. So it gets me into trouble. Like I'm really not good at pretending like I know everything, because I don't, because no one does. And so I wish I could be like that, but I'm really not. And so I'd rather be like real and honest and authentic. And I just hope that's like how the industry continues to head, because I guess I found how it is now is not where I fit. And so I want to create something where I fit and where kind of these other misfits can go as well, and anyone can come. So like for ALTERRAGE, like we just, if anyone wants to join our Discord, we are starting to launch like these little missions, and it's just a way to start for the community to earn our governance token, so then they can then have like a say in our future voting proposals. So we'll see how it goes.
I love that, you know, like you're really enthusiastic about this space, and I think, you know, you have passion for it, and we can see that. And like you said, it's a change, and nobody knows how we're going to deal with these things, but we're slowly figuring it out. And what you said is really important about breaking like old structures and just finding new ways, you know, of work, of working together, of collaborations, and just exciting, innovative things. And I think that needs people like you who are taking the first steps, you know, and are also honest and saying, I don't know everything, but I'm trying to pull all the strings together. And I think we are excited to see where ALTERRAGE is going in the future, definitely.
I wanted to discuss something quickly.
I can also send it to you
here. Yeah, maybe here is fine,
Okay, here we go.
I'm opening it too to check it out. Let's see. Rowie Durrell.
He's a digital fashion designer, and he's quite like
strong.
His opinions on the metaverse is really interesting. And there was a part that
I'm reading it too.
Yeah.
Let's see. I think what he's what he's trying to say is that we're throwing around this word of metaverse, you know, and that he doesn't believe in the hype kind of, you know, in this word, you know, and that's what he, I think, is trying to say.
Yeah, I think he's saying, I just read it too. Like, it's like Web3, like it's still being built. So we can't sell it to anyone because it still doesn't exist. Like, we don't have interoperability. We don't, right? Like he mentions, like games are blocked. So that's like still not realistic. It's still not easy to put our assets into these spaces. So like it's not ready.
It's still not user friendly as well. You know, if I have to connect my 100 wallets to join something, you know, it's like, this is not the best option.
I think I like when he said like people use, you know, beautiful words to sell other people an idea, they cannot ensure they will be able to execute. Like, don't let them! Exclamation.
No, I think but Lauren does it really well, let the earrings, let the clothes speak for herself,
exactly.
I love it.
And then he says, like, educate yourself, learn, and don't let people sell you a narrative, and definitely not a product for the day that the sky will open and the yellow brick road will fall down from the sky and we all will enter in the metaverse. And, he says, I want to believe it is our duty, metaverse creators, to reflect, point out, help educate, and to do it in the most ethical way. I think that's really nice, and I totally agree with him on that part, because, everybody is throwing that word around, and some people say we're already in it, and people are focusing so much on the possibilities and the innovation it's bringing, and it's like we're dreaming about something. And I think I like how he's sort of like, hey guys, come back down first, and think about this properly, and let's educate each other. And and I think I really appreciate that about, he's really like he's like focused on the realistic part of it, and I think that's awesome. And I really like your take on the metaverse as well. I like how you answered it, and I think you kind of touched on something similar, although he puts it in a different sort of way. And I really had to read that.
yeah And it's like we're in kind of a sad time like right now, and we're not, I don't know if we're allowed to feel that we're sad, but like we're all pretty alone, and like it's been a lot. And so we see that maybe the metaverse is like this exciting utopia we can start to build, and like I think it's also people to feel like they're in control again. So that's like another thing. And I'm totally down like with what he says too. I'm a Libra, so like I see everything from like two perspectives, so I have hard times making decisions. But like, right, like how do we build it together? How do we be open? I think just being open and transparent is super important. And that's where we've kind of gotten to problems in the past, when we're not.
Exactly. And doing it like in the most ethical way possible, because we don't want to like disappoint people. Like you said, we're all, as a society, we're all going through something right now, and the idea of metaverse it's really exciting, and it brings a lot of hope to designers, creators, and people in general. So like we have to really educate ourselves, and like you said, transparency and everything, it really matters, because we don't want to disappoint all these people who are like waiting for this to finally happen. Thank you so much, Lauren, for like going through this with me. I appreciate it.
Yeah, of course.
So Lauren, where can our audience, like, where can they find you on social media? Also, when they want to get involved, like, where can they find you?
Yeah. If you guys want to include some links in maybe when you post this, but so ALTERRAGE Official is the name of the Discord. And then you can also find us like with that name on Instagram, Twitter. We also have a link tree if anyone just like checks out like ALTERRAGE Official link tree. And then like me personally, I'm Kahlo.url on Twitter. So this is like
we'll put that in the bio.
It's also a new concept for a fashion person to make an alter ego online. Like this is something very gamer, and like I was like, that's so strange. Like, why would I change my name and like not be me? But now I kind of have fun with it, and now I'm like have a gold face. It's dripping. It's Kahlo. It's like my last name and my first name mixed. And I also really like Frida Kahlo, so she's.
No, I love that, because you can just express without any like anybody knowing who you are, where you're from. You're just showing your work or what you're about, and then later on maybe you get a little hint of who that is.
Right. Yeah, you're like 15 years old or you're 45, like you have kids, you're married, like nobody knows, which is like quite cool.
It doesn't matter in Web3,
Yeah.
Thank you, Joyce. Thank you, Lauren. We had such a fun time with you. And thank you, everyone, for being a part of today's forum. If you want to get more involved in our community, make sure to follow us on our social platforms. You can also join our private Telegram group and connect directly with myself and Joy. We will put all the links in the description below. Also, don't forget to like, subscribe to our channel. If you guys have any questions, don't forget to put them in the comments. See you in the next episode.